Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars, learning that Star Lord with idiots.
Hello, and welcome to Star Wars Lore with Idiots, the show where a bunch of grown men think that holding a lightsaber with the pointy end faced first is proper procedure. With that, let's turn it over to our lore master, Ranger J 1999, and the buffoons, Rambam 001, Karth, and Kashmir.
And welcome back to another high octane edition of Star Wars Lore with Idiots, the show where yours truly, Ranger J 1999, your lore master, tries to teach a bunch of idiots Star Wars lore, and it usually goes not very good. This is the show where we discuss lore in general terms just so we can teach the masses out there. The first two episodes are out, so if you're listening to this is episode number 3, and we'll get to the subject here momentarily. However, we would like for you, if you'd like this to continue on, then feel free to keep listening, leaving comments on the YouTube channel. The YouTube comments are always appreciated. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, all that stuff if you like the series. I'm looking to move this series eventually to Audible, iTunes, that kind of thing, because it is more of a podcast than it is our normal streaming stuff, which you can check on Reality Skewed Gamers on YouTube if you like this, and definitely go subscribe to the channel. And as I said, leave comments. We like the feedback and anything that goes with it. Speaking of feedback, if you like what you're hearing, you can become a Patreon member. It'll be linked in the description of the video, but go to Patreon/Reality Skewed Gamers. And you can become a patron, get all kinds of benefits. One of them being you get input on the lore series, you get the lore series early, and all kinds of other benefits of being a Patreon. So if we get to 1,000, we're 318 away. If we get to 1,000 total in dollars in Patrons, I will do a lore series on Mace Windu for one of the idiots, Rambam, who well, he worships at the altar of Mace Windu. That being said, Ram, I swear that's the last soundbite you're going to do. I swear to Christ, do not do another one during this record. I will beat you like the redheaded stepchild that I am. And I can say that because I am Ginger. I am a daywalker. I can say these kind of things. That being said, let's introduce the idiots today. We've got, of course, Rambam001, who just made those very ridiculous noises. Go ahead, Ram, introduce yourself normally, like a human being.
What is a human being?
Okay, moving on. Kashmir is also here, one of the aforementioned potato heads.
Hello, everyone.
Glad to have you here. And then, last but not least, I would say the least of the idiots, but still idiotic in stages, we've got Carthrick joining us.
Well, someone's got to crawl from the floor of the canteen every once in a while to say a wise word before toppling back over.
That's true. Wiser words have never been spoken on this show. And we like to drink while we're doing this, so let's go around the corn, as Grande from RSG likes to say, and see what everybody's drinking. Cash, what you sipping on tonight there, my friend?
Tonight I will be having some Four Roses bourbon.
Very nice. Very elegant, very classy. Rambam, what are you sipping on there?
Good old classic Jack and Coke.
Can't go wrong with the classic. And then, Carth, what do you got?
Oh, the very clean, the very crisp gin and soda.
I like that. And I'm drinking a Glenlivet single malt Scotch, brought to you by Meow Meow Incorporated.
Damn.
Yeah.
Tasty.
It is tasty. I'm getting that medicine in me as we speak. So there we go. We're ready. We're relaxed. We're drinking. That is tradition. That being said, I always, at this point, with the way the recordings have gone, I'm just going to randomly ask. Well, not randomly ask. I'm going to ask the idiots what they think the subject is. They're going to miss completely, and then I'll tell you what it is, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of today's subject matter and get this show on the road. That being said, who wants to go first? Who wants to make the first guess? All right, everyone's got their hand waved up. Let's go with Rambam. Rambam, what do you think the subject for today is going to be?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's got to be Jedi Master Syslin Murr.
I'm done with you, man. Just seriously, just moving on. Okay, you're on timeout. Seriously, just why would you say that? I mean, well, I know why you're saying it, but why would you mention that here?
Well, duh, he's a renowned great Jedi Master on the Jedi Council. Like, I mean, we should talk about him.
I hate you. Kashmir, what is your guess, my friend?
I never heard of that person. So
Okay.
I almost want to learn about them also, but
See, I agree.
but I have a different guess.
Okay.
So
Okay, another guess.
all
Okay.
right, we did Darth Revan, then
Yes.
we did the Force. You threw us for a curveball on that one. I think you're going to throw us even more of a curveball.
Hmm.
I think we're going to go over how the Jedi actually made money, aka what their side hustle was.
That's wrong. Yeah, not correct. Yeah, not. I don't even think that'll be something we'll ever cover as part of the lore series. Shame on you. Keep drinking. And then last but not least, Karth, what do you got for me, buddy?
I think we're gonna do an in-depth discussion on
Sure.
the use of the Kashyyyk trees as sap and what uses it had in the overall galactic economy and
Mhm.
weapons production.
You're really into the economy kind of stuff, aren't you?
Well, the whaling cannoneer would be interested in money.
Yes, that's true. We need more money, buddy. We want more money so we can get more money, buddy. All right. No, those are all wrong as per usual. That's not even close. Today, gentlemen, we are going to be discussing lightsabers, their origins, and we are going to just in general terms get into the different lightsaber forms, lightsaber styles in today's discussion. Now, um, usually I give a quote, but that usually leads to horrible things. So I decided to skip the quote for today and go into what do you know about lightsabers? Let's go to Karth. Karth, if you can you tell me about lightsabers? What do you know?
Well, I know that they are this, blazing, you know, blade on a
Mm-hmm.
stick that does stuff and things. It's something that can cut through everything, but when it
Yes.
hits itself, it can't do anything.
It can't cut through
Um,
everything.
I mean, that's true, but I mean, I always feel like when we see it, it's always plot related, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Qui-Gon Jinn can stick this lightsaber, hilt deep in a door and eventually get through it, but
Not wrong.
God forbid, Beskar even get a dent.
No, you can't go through Beskar. That was one of the things. All right, Cash, what do you got for me? What do you know about the old lightsabers? Anything? Healer? Did we lose Kashmir?
How to unpress the mute button?
How to use technology? All right, we'll come back to Cash, and then we'll go to Ram Bam. Ram, what do you got for me on lightsabers here today?
Well, I think everybody already knows that, if most lightsabers, they generally have a on switch. And so if you touch
True.
that on switch in the right way with the right amount of
Sure.
pressure and force,
Go on.
it typically ignites in a blaze of glory,
It
and
does.
it gets really hot and steamy, and then
I don't know about
sometimes
that.
it will just it'll make a lot of things kind of liquidy,
That's
and gets really
no,
wet.
that's really
And
not. No, that's you are okay. No, wrong.
I think you're crossing up your lore.
Yeah, I think you really are. I think you have made a horrible mistake here. All right, let's see if we can get Kashmir again. All right, Kashmir, are you back? Can you tell me what you know about lightsabers?
It is the sword that the Jedi and Sith use to basically f things up.
That's a good. I like that. Kashmir's not wrong. All right. I mean, I'm going to take that. That is not wrong. He is actually quite on point with that. Very nice, Kashmir. I'm a little bit impressed there.
I'm done for the rest of the night.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah
That was
that's
my one and only smart comment. I'm done. Bye.
yeah. Now, usually I would just read the quote, but I'm just going to read the quote because lightsabers were first introduced in Episode 4 when you had Kenobi going, to Luke says this is a weapon of a Jedi Knight, not as clumsy or random as a blaster, an elegant weapon from a more civilized age. And that's when lightsabers you first see a lightsaber, right? In any of the canon in Star Wars, but they go way back. There's now since that movie, there's been a ton of lore that has been associated with lightsabers. So let's get into their origins because their origins kind of dictates the lightsaber styles that we're going to cover today. So we have to get a little bit. Now, I'm not going to break down how lightsabers work other than just general terms. We're not going to get into the minutia of like the crystals and how the crystals function and each part of a lightsaber. We'll maybe do that for another episode, but we just want to get into some origins of lightsabers and then the different forms so you can kind of get a sense of lightsaber combat and what each of these forms does. Now, the origins, the first version of any lightsabers, they, of course, remember last episode we covered the Rakata? Well, the Rakata are coming back because they were the first one. We talked about the Rakata in the previous episode where the Rakata infused the force with technology, where they were the first ones to come up with what's known as a force saber. They would take a synthetic crystal into a cylinder and then they would use the dark side of the force um, initially through laboratory crystals, but that led to synthetic crystals and it would create a glowing blade that they can use in combat. Their hounds, their warriors, all their stuff would use. That's what the Jedi ran into. Now, what's interesting about the Jedi, now that's where you originally get that kind of glowing blade, but that technology gets lost with the Rakata. Remember, the Infinite Empire dies off and has their own problems and they go away. But it gave the Jedi, who at the time were using, you would call force imbued blades, if you want to say that. They were using the force with actually sharp blades, but they would use the force through those blades. But they were still blades, you know, like a samurai sword or any kind of sword that you can think of. That was what the Jedi were originally were using. But after their battle with the Rakata, seeing these force sabers and what they were doing gave them some ideas, and so they it started. They wanted to create the same thing, but they didn't have the Rakata technology, so they created what's known as um, a ritual they would go through called to quote freeze a laser beam, laser, and that would be their standard weapon they would use, and they couldn't figure anything out until then. Very primitive, very arcane lightsabers. Um, it wasn't until around 15,500 BBY they developed a frozen blaster technology that arced a beam back to its source, creating a controlled circuit. Um, Now, the problem with this, however, these first lightsabers in around 15,500 BBY is that they were highly unstable and wouldn't last long and would basically, after a few minutes, just melt. And the other thing was that they had to be powered by a power supply on a belt. They had to have a power supply with a cord going to the blade, and eventually they would overheat. So they were mainly ceremonial objects. They were still using blades to fight, but they had these as ceremonial objects. And they were mainly used in heavy siege fighting. So you could hold it to get through doors and blaster doors and walls and things of that nature. You could use this kind of blade to get through it. You only had a few minutes to use it before it would fail. Now this is where this is where we ask the idiots, are they with us so far? Any questions so far? And are you with me so far on lightsabers and early technology with lightsabers? Go around the corn. Anybody want to say anything or ask any question?
So the short is the lightsabers initially were on power cords,
Mm-hmm.
and then we moved them to fancy battery packs.
We haven't got to that point yet, but we are getting there. That's a good observation, Karth.
I mean, they had a power cord on their belt. It's kind of like it's just like you strap the generator to your butt and then you power your
Well,
lightsaber.
I don't think lightsabers were powered by farts. Yeah, I don't think that was a
Well,
thing.
no. You have a generator on your like a belt that sits above your butt. 'Cause
Oh,
you wouldn't
above your
want that
butt. No, it actually
exposed.
sat in the
Yeah.
front because the front was where they had to do all their fighting, so the cord would sit there in front of them and stuff.
Clearly,
Yeah.
these guys haven't heard extension cords yet.
Anybody else with observations here?
So the lightsabers on the belts was a reference to helicopter dicks. Got it.
No, what are you talking about? That's wrong. God, why would you even say that, Ram? Thank God I've got this fine Scotch whiskey to get through this episode. You know, I'm trying to keep some serious stuff here, and Ram just pooping all over it. Kashmir, any questions so far, buddy?
No, but I like to think I'm a problem solver. Why
Mm,
didn't they just bring like big batteries
we're gonna get to that.
and just like plug them in with extension cords? You know, they could have like
Yeah,
power strips, so a whole bunch of them. You know, like
it's
a whole switch
was it
or
was
something.
not. Yeah, so that's a great question. They didn't have the type of power needed because these boxes were big on their belts, right? And it required a huge amount of energy just to make the blade do what it did, right?
Big batteries.
Yeah, I mean it's the amount of energy. If you think about what it uses, take a beam of light and then arc it and then freeze it. That's in the heat generated from that. That's what they were dealing with, and they didn't have the technology at the time to overcome sheer amount of one power that they were putting in, and to stabilize it in a way to use the blade other than what I mentioned before. So that's a good observation.
So basically, what you're saying
Oh
is
God,
that they initially had to carry around like car batteries on their belts,
a little bit smaller,
and
but not
then
far off. Yeah.
eventually we get down to like the double A, triple A type size batteries that go inside
Smaller
the
than that.
lightsaber.
Yeah, that's what we're getting to.
And then we got to the Tony Stark little power reactor.
And then
Oh,
they just
then we
use the
had Iron
power of
Man.
imagination.
And then we sat down and had cookies.
And
No
Are you
words
going
on
then
to
the
watch
Rangers
this?
cookies.
stopped caring to do the lore series anymore. And that was how the show ended right there. All right. Let's continue on. Oh god, the interludes between these are horrible. Through the ages, however, these flaws were overcome by the Jedi and their technicians, and they became more stable. Um, they still suffered from the high energy consumption that they had to use, and the power cable that was still hooked to the belt. Now this changes after the Hundred Years' War. We've not covered the Hundred Years' War. After the initial Jedi, fight, the Force Wars, nothing really happens for about 18,000 years, and then we get to the Hundred Years' War. Now this is called also the Great Schism. The what would soon become the Sith. This is where the split of the Jedi and the Sith happened, where the people that believed in the dark side wanted to take over. It leads to 100 years of war, but it was the Sith and not the Jedi that actually came up with the first advancements in lightsaber tech. They were the first to replace the belt-mounted power supply with a power cell within the hilt. They also were the first to come up with schematics for the first double-bladed lightsabers, originated from the Sith. They were also the first ones since the Berkata to use synthetic crystals. Um, and after the 100 Years War, the losers are exiled. They find the original Sith, the red skinned folks, the Jedi that are sent, the we'll call them the Fallen, the exiles. They get sent there. They still keep lightsaber technology, but the Sith at the time, and we'll get into Sith blades when we get to Sith, preferred to use their Sith blades. Sith blades, kind of like the original Jedi blades, were forced imbued with dark side and with Sith alchemy and sorcery that could cut through anything, and I mean anything, and they could block lightsabers and could cut, and they like the spray of blood, and boy did these things do it. But we'll get into that with the Sith. But it was the Sith and not the Jedi that developed the techniques for no longer having the power cord, stable power supply, double bladed lightsabers, because they were more offensive minded in what they were doing when they were fighting the wars. So this, war leads to advanced technology being done, and that's what happened with lightsabers. Um, and this came even more evident where both sides eventually they were still using blades and stuff. The Jedi were still using the power cords until the Great Hyperspace War, which happens around, I don't know, 5,000 BBY. I'm being rough with here, but both sides after that war, Sith blades, Jedi lightsabers, both led to both sides with the technology being advanced enough that the technology had finally reached a point after the Great Hyperspace War that both sides started using the lightsabers that we've come to know in today. Now, from that point to current times, certain lightsabers, double bladed or whatnot, were more, as we get into the lightsaber forms, designed for the user, but the basic premise and mechanics of them do not change. It's got the force crystal or synthetic crystal, it's got the power supply. The style of the blade or blades is based off the user and what they want to do with it. And most people took pride in developing their own kind of blade as kind of a passage in either the Sith or the Jedi. And that leads to the refinements that you see in some of the blades that come out during, you can say during the Clone Wars, where you see Dooku's blade or Asajj's blade or Ahsoka's blades or Anakin's blade. They were all specific to the user and what they were trying to do. And there have been some really cool lightsabers throughout history. Even Mace Windu, he had the purple lightsaber. Jedi Sentinels used yellow lightsabers. Wasn't Kyle Katarn. It was not Kip Dern. Who was the other one in the Jedi Academy series? Horn. He had that really cool one where he took a speeder bike handle and made his own lightsaber, but he had a cool thing where he could twist it and make the blade like twice as long and he would fight with it. So there's a lot of cool variations of lightsabers that happen over the years based off the style, which we're going to get into, of the different lightsaber forms and what they could do. All right, interlude again. Here we go with the idiots. Oh, God in heaven. All right. Who do I want to start with first? Cashmere. No, let's go to Karth. Cashmere, I think, has got some silliness in his brain. What do you got on your brain after that little brief history of lightsaber development and technology?
It's kind of like I think the thing I like most about the lightsabers development is that it was like a unique weapon to the creator of it.
Yeah.
Um, that part I really enjoy because you get a lot of like personal flair, and like the material you use is more about what you find comfortable. So it's like basically like a Build-A-Bear for a lightsaber. You
Not
get to
wrong.
do whatever you feel is best for you, and then go use that to hack and slash your opponents.
I like that. That's good observations. Rambam, what do you think, buddy?
Well, I
Or any questions? You know the deal.
oh no, I agree with Karth. I like the fact that lightsabers provide a uniqueness aspect to it. Not only do they look cool, but and then they're obviously really great weapons, but they allow you to kind of accentuate some style that you might have. That's why like Mace Windu has like one of the coolest lightsabers in the world with "bad motherfucker" written on it.
Hmm. And Cashmere.
I think they made them unique because they were trying to get out of trademark infringements for whoever invented the lightsaber.
What?
That's my guess. Well, if you copy someone else's lightsaber, then you're just gonna get
What?
sued for trademark infringements.
That's wrong. Just all right. We're moving on. All right. Now I'm gonna ask a question. A trick question. You might not. You may know it. You may not. Cashmere. How many lightsaber styles do you think there are?
I am going to say 7.
Okay. Ram. What do you think?
You say how many forms?
Yeah. How many forms are there?
Yeah, I think 7.
Okay. And Karth, what do you think?
I know seven's the wrong answer,
Mm-hmm.
so I want to say it's like 13.
Oh God.
Just because I said 7 doesn't mean it's the wrong answer.
No. I just know because I've dabbled in some of this stuff before. There are like the official ones that everyone uses, but then there's like all these like ancient Sith form, or the form that was shunned by the Jedi Order YouTube videos that show up, and so it's like I know there's more beyond that. I just don't know
It's
the
really not.
number.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna stick with the main ones because most fallen Jedi, even Sith, use these forms because they kind of cover the entire gambit of what you can do with the lights. The correct answer is 8. The original 7 forms, and then there's also another one that deals with
Garkai.
So the
Kai.
the
Yeah.
short answer is I was half right because I said 7 was wrong.
You were way over. You overbid like the price is right. Sorry. Thanks for playing. You get a nice prize. All right. Let's get into the lightsaber forms. Now, I'm going to give you some examples of people that did these lightsaber forms. We're going to cover each one, maybe discuss a little bit. Now, maybe these forms will get their own series except Form 1. Form 1 is the basic form, but we'll cover that. The other ones might get their own series, but I think what we may do with the lightsaber forms is when we talk about certain people and that was like and get in depth with the lightsaber form, will be like we do Mace Windu. Of course, we're going to talk about Vapad then and stuff, right? Because that's really him and Quillen Voss. We'll give some examples and we'll talk, but we'll do it mainly for those and get into the why that lightsaber form and the specifics of the form makes a lot more sense. But let's just get into the basic combat style of lightsabers.
So the basic is strike, parry, and evade, right?
No. Well, that's a part of it. So form 1 is Shicho, right? SHII CHO. Shicho. And this is the oldest known form of lightsaber combat. It is a very simplistic style that balanced traditional maneuvers, intent on maiming and killing with a focus on disarming an armed foe, and was used with multiple opponents. And this was the basic form and techniques that you get with Padawans in the Jedi Order. This is the basic from the Jedi all the way here. This is the first, like, to block, to parry, to dodge, to strike. Basic forms of this is what is the basic building block of all forms. Now, a lot of Jedi dabbled in multiple forms, and some had all of them. Like, for instance, Darth Revan did all of them. Sidious did all of them. Jedi Master, but there were some like Jedi Masters like Mace, and some of the Jedi Masters had 2 to 3, not just the one that they knew, but some other ones that they would incorporate in to their style. So you can see examples of Jedi and Sith using different ones, but they would develop their own style from it. But these were the traditional forms. So form 1 is just your basic stuff. How to swing the saber, how to block with the saber, how to defend with the saber, as you said, attacking, all that stuff. These are the basic forms that you're going to learn through any kind of use of lightsaber. Are we on the same page so far? Now, I'm going to give some examples, some people of each of these different forms, but form 1 doesn't have any examples because it covers everybody. You have to be base. You have to have the base. You have to learn to crawl before you walk, and you have to learn to walk before you can run. And we are in the crawl state. Any questions from the idiot?
Form 1 is like lightsaber for idiots.
Mm-hmm. Like if you see that, you remember in Attack of the Clones where you see Yoda, Obi-Wan comes into Yoda, and you see the younglings doing moves and stuff. That's form 1. Does that give you a visual of it?
Yeah. So that's why they couldn't defend them.
Go ahead.
That's why they couldn't defend themselves against Anakin.
Master Skywalker, what are we going to do? There's too many. I know what I'm going to do.
So form 1 was the one that Wookiee Jedi used.
What Wookiee Jedi?
Gunji, man, come
The
on.
Wookiee Jedi that's coming out in Bad Batch Season 2. You don't know the
Gunji.
Wookiee Jedi? Come on.
No, I'm talking about.
Gunji.
Why would you think that would be form 1 only?
Because he's a Padawan. He's like basic.
No, see,
He
that's
doesn't know anything.
Youngling is basic. Padawans are actually
He's a
doing
youngling
things.
to me. I feel like he's
Oh
young.
my God, you made me choke my vape. You're such a dumbass. Such an idiot, man.
So Ram's gonna go kill the Gunji. Check.
Yeah. God almighty.
Ram Vader. Check.
You mean change out my vape? You butthole. All right, let me get a little puff of this because Rams confirmed that I picked the wrong week to stop sniffing glue. Oh God.
Well, they don't call it, Star Wars lore with like smart people.
Come on. They've really proven the case here, man. Yeah,
I'm trying to keep the title of Star Wars lore with idiots.
Doing a great job, Ram. I mean,
you
shine the light on. You shine the light on stupid. You're doing a great job, Ram. I'm really proud of you, buddy. All right. Form 2, Makashi. All right. Now, this is a style regarding for its elegance, graceful presentation, and ballet approach in wielding a lightsaber. It was notable for its primary focus on facing a single opponent, preventing disarmament and quick, very precise strikes. Some examples of those that use Makashi: Dooku, the Grand Inquisitor, Grandmaster Kiyami. I can't talk all of a sudden. Get me on this. Kiadi Mundi are examples of those that use Makashi. This is for lightsaber fighting, and it's a lost art, and that's why I made Dooku so potent, because he was one of the ones that really studied it, and Jedi that would fight Sith and vice versa studied Form 2, because this deals with lightsaber on lightsaber crime. With me? Science is scary. I'm a little scared right now. Any questions on Form 2 Makashi? Okay, moving on. Oh, thank God. All right, Form 3 Sarutsu. This is a defensive style that utilizes tight, controlled movements and strict economy of action. Practitioners of this form focus on defense entirely in any situation and committed to analyze their opponents and openings created, often from the frustration and fatigue of the enemy. While not succumbing to fatigue or making mistakes themselves, it remained popular even during the creation of other lightsaber forms. This is the big defensive one, and some examples of Form 3 is the big one is Kenobi. Luminar was also a practitioner of this, and her Padawan when Barriss Offee to game a couple. Most people study Suretsu. The thing about Suretsu is if you became a master of it, and very few did, you had to like Kenobi. What made Kenobi such a crazy duelist is that he used Suretsu. Um, he just would just parry, 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 parry. Oh, wait, just like he did with Duke or with Grievous. Like, okay, opening, cut your hand off. That's what he did in all his fights. Now he also had some teachings from Qui-Gon that he learned, but again, his main form was Suretsu. Many people learn Suretsu, but to master it is a different thing because you've got to have the stamina, the force, everything to use it because you got to be patient. Your person can be attacking the hell out of you, like Anakin was in Episode 3 against Kenobi. He just kept doing his thing until he saw the opening, and what did he do? He had the high ground, used it to his advantage. Any questions on Form 3 Suretsu? It's a very popular one and well known.
So this is like Kenobi was like the marathon runner of lightsabers. He would just
Yeah.
keep on chugging along.
Yeah, Suretsu teaches you a lot of defensive actions with lightsaber combat, but if you're more offensive minded, you would just use the basics of Suretsu and your defensive fighting, but you would go more on offense. Anakin had some Suretsu, but he would also mainly do his main style that he had, and he had a few of them. But yeah, but to be a master of Suretsu is a big deal because you're basically the defensive wall. And Kenobi, that's what Kenobi was. And you think Kenobi, block, 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 dodge, dodge, block, 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 strike. And you're like, he just waited for that opportunity to get you. And when he got you, he got you. But think about all the movement and fighting that he did, like in Episode 3. He just sitting there, block, block, block. Anakin just going to town from the first opening salvo all the way through, and Kenobi just waiting. He's just waiting. He's just doing his thing, and that's what Suretsu is. Anybody else on Suretsu?
Defense. Defense. Get some stadium chants. That's what I'm hearing.
That's the best defense. All right. Moving on to Form 4, Ataru. Now, this is an acrobatic and aggressive lightsaber combat style that placed greater emphasis on using the force to enhance movements in all areas of combat and required great room to attack from all directions. Due to its nature, it was considered a demanding fighting style both physically and through the force. Some examples of Form 4 are Aayla Secura, of course, Anakin, Ezra, Ahsoka comes to mind with this, Maul. This is very highly offensive style of combat that was kind of supplemented with these other ones that we're going to get into. But yeah, this is an example of this is the Vader versus Ahsoka fight in Rebels, where you see her flip toward, or she throws Vader, even though she's wielding two lightsabers, uses the Force, and then flips. This acrobatic style is part of her repertoire of Force forms that she would use with her lightsabers, along with the other one, which is, of course, we'll get into Jar Kai. But yeah, when you see a lot of this stuff, acrobatic styles, Ahsoka comes to mind. These other ones that I mentioned come to mind as well. Ezra, Aayla, Anakin, Ahsoka, Maul use some of this. There's a lot of people that counterbalance with this style of acrobatics and aggressive lightsaber style. Very aggressive. It is very much you're going all in physically and through the force to take down your opponent. Very aggressive style. Go
I
ahead,
think
Cash.
you're purposely forgetting to mention somebody. Some little green guy.
Yoda was a master of all. Yoda had his own style. His style is like So I will say this about the true masters of lightsaber form. There's a few of them. Grandmaster Yoda is one of them. Sidious is one of them. Darth Revan is one of them. They had their own unique style. They were a master of all these. Like when you think combat style, they had a master of all these. Like they didn't have they took they mastered all this and then they came up with their own style. Yoda was that flippity hippity hoppy stuff, but that was unique to Yoda. He was the only one that really did that kind of consistent fighting like that. Sidious was just nasty, aggressive. If you saw the fight with Maul and Savage in Clone Wars, you see him using all the forms in that, like easily. He's using defense, offense, force, everything all at once. Those are the kind of people. Darth Revan was the true master of that because not only was he a master of the light side and the dark side, and was one of the few that used both powers when he was fighting. He also, with the dual-bladed lightsabers that he used, he was a master of all lightsabers. Those guys are next level above all this stuff. When you look at the Sith and the Jedi, they would be two or three of these combined to form kind of their own style, but they would take or master one and then have some other ones that would supplement that one form. That was where they would stand, you know? So, like, Kenobi had Suretsu, but he also has Form 5, which we're going to get into next, because that's where he learned from Qui Gon. So he had a combination of both, but he focused mainly on Suretsu. Sidious, the other guys I mentioned, they're on another level. Does that answer your question there, Cash?
Yep.
All right. Anybody else? Checking in with the idiots here.
No.
And Rand's being silent. And I feel safe. Form 5. This is Xian, or also known as Jim So. Now, this is two fluid disciplines of lightsaber combat, which were considered physically demanding styles due to the requirement of quick transitions from dedicated defense stances to all-out attacks. The Sheen variant emphasized blasted redirection, and practitioners can utilize the reverse blade grip. The Jin So variant taught users maneuvers for saber combat and blaster deflection. Some examples of Form 5 are again Ahsoka, Luke Skywalker, Darth Bane, to name a few that would use Ahsoka for sure, the reverse grip. Luke could do that. He also, in the books, he did use wasn't called a wasasashi, but it was a shorter blade. When he was fighting, what's her name? He used this kind of before, but he had mastered it.
Shunto.
Shunto, yeah, it's a Shunto. Thank you. I didn't have it written down. Darth Bane, yeah, for sure. There's a whole bunch of people that have that use dual blade lightsabers, or two lightsabers that would use this in other forms. But yeah, this one is again getting to the more advanced forms, right, of lightsaber combat. That this one mainly covered to really be. This is like multiple targets, multiple attackers. You've got blasters. You're doing all kinds of stuff. Saber to saber combat. You're deflecting blasters, but not just deflecting them, but you're deflecting them back at your opponent. That kind of thing with two blades and stuff. And other, you can usually use it with one blade if you wanted to. Luke was notorious for this. That's Form 5. All right, we go to the idiot.
Sounds like Starkiller's moveset.
Mm-mm.
What?
Star-
No, come on.
Nope, Starkiller's a different one.
Damn.
Not a
Like
bad guess
hands.
though. He
Well,
he
his
did have
the,
some of the Form 5.
he did, yeah, because
Absolutely.
he had the
Yeah.
reverse
Oh
grip
yeah.
on
He
both.
definitely had
Yeah,
Form 5, but that was not his main one.
yeah. No, that's just like the one of the most iconic reverse grip characters for me is him. So that's where I thought we were headed.
Yeah,
But that's
him and
okay.
Ahsoka are the two that when you think of the reverse grip fighting, those two stand out the most, right? When you think about that kind of lightsaber combat and how they use it, and they would use the Force with the other form, and again, multiple forms used combined into their own kind of style. All right. With that being said, we go to Form 6. This is Nemon. Um, Now, this is considered the most popular lightsaber combat form in the Jedi Order. It balanced the qualities presented in all the other forms, but did not incorporate any notable strengths. It was less demanding than all the other previous combat styles, and its approach was a careful balance between offense and defense, but leaned towards the latter and extensive integration of force powers. Some examples is pretty much everybody, but some that really did this well is Darth Maul, Darth Sidious, when you think of this kind of form, Jedi Sentinels, because this is when you're going against somebody that's pretty powerful. Form 6 is an advanced form. Masters of the Jedi Order, the Jedi Sentinels, your Sith, the especially when we had the Rule of Two. This was definitely a popular style that incorporated some of all the other forms we just mentioned, but incorporated whether it was offense or defense, depending if you're a Sith or Jedi, with Force powers. This is like the advanced stage. Like you've got like your Form 3, you're a master of that, but you want to get more balance, you go to Form 6 if you're a Jedi Master or something like that. Sith the same way. You would master some of the other ones, unless you're Sidious and master all of them, for Christ's sakes. But Form 6 was definitely the one that really stood out. All right, we're on Form 6. Idiots are being quite quiet. Any questions so far through Form 6? Because the two big ones are coming up next.
No wild questions. More or less, I'm kind of just chomping at the bit to get to the end of these ones because they sound a lot more interesting.
Yeah, the last two are the coolest ones. Form 7, Juyo, or Vapad. Rams over the cream in his jeans. Considered the most aggressive and unpredictable disciplines and therefore the most controversial. It was a combat style with a history of the Jedi High Council forbidding it and later allowing only select users to practice the discipline. It was a style considered both physically and emotionally exhausting. The Juyu variant focused on aggressive assault and mindset that drew upon anger and negative emotions to fuel relentless assault. The mindset caused many users to fall to the dark side, of course, close to it. The Vaped variant, developed by Mace Windu, similarly drew upon anger and passion, but required the user to not give in to them. This style is characterized by rapid frenzy strikes and powerful blows. However, it was not as reckless in nature as Juyo. Some examples of practitioners of Juyo Vapad, of course, is Mace, Quinlan Voss, Galen Merrick, to name a few that use this form extensively. Dark side users loved Form 7. But Vaped also is they did like 7, but they would use other ones. But 7 was a counteraction to if you could control it. And you see the fight with Mason and Sidious in episode 3. He's using Sidious actions against him. If you could control Vaped, not Juyo. Juyo was more of the Sith variant, but Vaped, you could use and draw the dark side away from the other person and fuel you to defeat them. That's why Vaped was considered the Sith killer if you could master it. Quinlan Voss tried, he failed. He actually fell to the dark side. Many practitioners of this would fall to the dark side. Mace and I guess you could say Galen, after everything that goes on in the game, are the only two that I can think of that got past that and could control their anger and aggression toward using this style to benefit. And they both did. I mean, Mace held his own against Sidious, and you saw Galen what he did to both Sidious and Vader in the games. I mean, they just and again games, but it's all part of the same lore and canon. So, all right, Ram, I know you're chomping at the bit. This is your boy's forum. What do you got anything to ask or say?
I love this form. It's just
It's such a cool
it's
form.
like it really is, right. This is the form that like really got me. Obviously Mace, but like it got me into looking at lightsaber forms because it was just kind of knowing what your opponent's strengths are and then tossing it right back at them.
Yep.
And just, oh yeah, you studied the dark side. Well, let me just turn all your dark side energy, absorb it, not turn into it, and then just send it right back at you and let you fight yourself essentially.
Yeah.
So
It's
it
amazing.
was great.
Yeah, it's an amazing
And it's like
style.
super aggressive, but it's
Well,
Go ahead,
yeah,
Kurt.
it's just it was so good.
oh, my little nugget on this whole thing is kind of like a random footnote, but there's a reason why in the Clone Wars Mace never fought Grievous.
Yes.
Yes.
Because Grievous was such an adept warrior that he could learn by observing somebody else's combat style that Mace never wanted Grievous to learn the form.
Yeah.
So he tried to never engage him if he could avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
Which gives you an idea of how powerful that form would be over somebody who is emotionless as Grievous. Grievous was just a straight up like he did not give a care. He did what he wanted to do.
Yeah, Form 5 was one of Grievous's main things, which makes sense if you look at Form 5, right? He was that was and you see in the animated Clone Wars show that was on Cartoon Network, um, the
Oh, the
Dooku,
OG animated.
yeah, the OG animated one where Dooku's training Grievous in lightsaber form and tells him to use the unorthodox through Form 5 is what he's teaching him. Of course, Dooku being a master of two and some of the other ones, being the duelist that he was, could do that and teach Grievous those things. So that's exactly why Mace didn't want him to see it, because he knew he had been trained by Dooku, who trained Mace.
Well, and Grievous also had the cybernetic enhancements
Yes.
that would allow him to rapidly observe. Like some of these forms take 10 years or so to master, and Grievous could do it in minutes because of his cybernetic enhancements.
Yeah,
That was another reason.
the thing that worked against him with that is that everything was copied, right? So when
Yeah.
you have somebody like who was a Form 3 master, the reason why people are like, you see through the Clone Wars and everything, Grievous is terrorizing everybody. Why did Kenobi kick his ass so hard? Because he was a master of Form 3. He's like block, 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 opening cut.
Right.
Block, block, block,
That's
block,
why
block, 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 cut.
that's why Kenobi was so good against Grievous, because it's just, okay, well, you're going to copy my form. Okay, so be defensive. I'll just throw in some attacks here and there.
Yeah, because he had
Like-
Form 5.
Well-
and he was you couldn't get through Kenobi's defense. He was like just
And
waiting.
defense wasn't his strong suit either. But that was the thing is with Grievous, is when he copied, he also copied that person's weaknesses, because every person who learned a form brought their own flair to it. So that's like when we had like the flashbacks in the Kenobi series, with Anakin and Kenobi sparring. Kenobi would gather Anakin's weaknesses and then
Yep.
use that against him. So it's like the same thing too. If you know the Jedi he's fought, you should have a relative idea how to exploit it. But anyways, side
Well, it's
note.
like,
No,
it's like
it's
what
really
Ranger
good.
says. What stats the best? Defense.
And when it comes to Kenobi, yeah. I don't think Kenobi gets enough credit for his lightsaber abilities. If you think about who all the opponents he faced and dueled, he's defeated quite a few members. Maul many times, Grievous. You go down the list. He's done some good work there.
Maul also used Juyo, right?
Yes. Maul would use Geo. He used some of Atara and some of the other ones. And this last one, this is a perfect segue into Jar Kai. Now, Jar Kai is the method of using two lightsabers during combat, but the single blades or double-bladed lightsabers altogether. Variants of Jar Kai included utilizing more than two single blades or a double-bladed lightsaber at the same time, depending on physiology of the person. That one Jedi master that turned evil that had 4 arms, that had 4 lightsabers, like Grievous, or the two double-bladed lightsabers. Sorry.
Yeah.
Or technological capabilities of the combatant. Some examples of that, of course, is Ahsoka, Exar Kun, Darth Revan, Darth Maul. You can go down the line. Sidious. Jar Kai was the thing that incorporated just the 2 lightsaber combat into everything that was previously mentioned. And Jar Kai is one that was found and lost and found and lost and found and lost and developed and fall. It's one that and it was those practitioners. And there's what's his name, the Tusken that became a Jedi. He was known for using two blades. So this is really the variant that covers the 2 lightsabers during combat form, because you have to be highly skilled to use 2 lightsabers for offense and defense, and double-bladed lightsaber. And so depending on like what you could and could not do, Grievous with 4, there was different variations of this, but yeah, Jar Kai is a very important one, and we eventually will get to each of these forms, because you could really break down the usage and the development of these forms through over time. But yeah, Jar Kai is the last one that's kind of listed in canon as like the Form 8 that's part of these other ones. And you see, like, for example, Ahsoka has Ataru for sure, right? She has what was it, Form 5, which was Anakin, and then parts of Form 3, Sarutsu from Kenobi, but she also practiced Jar Kai. Mace had multiple levels of different ones, and then of course, when you think about like the lightsaber masters, Jedi Master Kenobi, Yoda, Darth Sidious, Darth Revan. These were people that mastered all of these. all of them. Like they could use any of these, and then they made it their own specialized form, which made them such deadly combatants in combat. Because what would make them stand out most of all is, they'd be using dual bladed lightsabers or one lightsaber, and they're like throwing shit at you and using force lightning or force choking you and taking on multiple combats. I mean, these people could go through multiple opponents like it was nothing. When you saw like Kenobi and Yoda fighting the clones when they're going back to the Jedi Temple, they're doing their thing, but you see, Yoda just tearing through clones like it's nothing because he's throwing his lightsaber, catching it, going through the next one. That's what makes lightsaber combat so unique, is that it eventually, if you get to study it over time, and if you have 900 years like Yoda, you can study it, or if you have like you do nothing but dedicate your life to it, like Palpatine did, you can master all the forms. But everybody had a different approach to lightsaber combat. Some would take a few forms and master them, master one, but add different lightsaber forms on top of that. Everybody had form one, but it was where you wanted to go based off your master, what you learned, how far you wanted to take it, and what they're all personalized styles. If you look at the styles of lightsaber combat, you can take and mix and match each one of these and put it into your own style. You can master a couple of them, but use them in your own form, so you can have your very own unique lightsaber. Anakin was notorious for doing this, and some of the other ones that I mentioned. So, that being said, let's go around the corn again. Let's go to Kashmir. You've been kind of quiet here, listening to everything, my friend. What are your questions about lightsaber forms and stuff?
Not really a question, but I'm calling BS. That really the Form 8 is just because you have two lightsabers. So Ram and I were right. Karth was wrong.
What?
When we said there was 7 forms, we were right.
No, there's
The
8.
eighth, the eighth one you throw in an extra lightsaber. Come on, that's BS.
But it's the style, man.
That's still no, not accepting it. I'm right.
Okay,
Ram was
you're
right.
wrong. You're in a timeout. What do you mean? Well, I don't like that answer. I'm going to come with my own. I'd say it's 7. Well, there's 8. I don't care. Is it just so you can say you're right and Cart's wrong? He gets 13. He was wrong too.
Yeah, but he wanted to say he was
Closer.
half right because he said that the answer wasn't 7.
Oh my God.
Well, you said 7 was wrong, and I was right. So there you go, halfway there.
Saying 8 is wrong, then I don't want to be right. All right. Karth. God.
Yo, what?
Questions? Anything
happening?
as we start getting through the lightsaber, the forms?
No, I mean, like the main thing that's very interesting about the connection between the forms and the development of the lightsaber is that both take on a very unique attribute as to the user.
Yeah.
Because you specialized not because of what you thought you wanted, but by what you naturally were. So people who are naturally defensive chose the route of Sorosu, like Kenobi, where they did not want to go on the offensive, where people who were naturally aggressive, like Anakin, chose the much more aggressive forms, and their lightsabers also reflected that to a degree, where they were designed to be a little bit more pointed towards what they preferred.
Yeah. That's
So
great observation.
it's very interesting to see that even though through the development they're completely two separate things, how the lightsaber and the form itself very much reflect the individual who wields them. And it's kind of fun that you get a mix and match. It was kind of like the one thing I didn't like in the early iterations of lightsaber combat were like, well, you only had one form. And I'm like, listen here, if I've got, if I'm Yoda and I got 900 years and all I do is master one form, I don't think I'm going to be very good at my job. So it's
No.
like I like that they finally kind of were like, yeah, it's kind of a mishmash. You have certain ones that you kind of your primary, but you always bleed from the other ones. It's like it's not so cut and dry. There's a lot more like well, who was your master? What are you what do you naturally default
Who's your master
towards?
and what does he do?
What was your exposure? What were your missions that you were doing, kind of thing. They all kind of lead into that, and then you kind of revolt, because that was the thing at the Battle of Geonosis, right?
Mm-hmm.
The why so many Jedi died there is they hadn't practiced deflecting blaster bolts in forever.
Mm-hmm.
So when they got 500 guns pointed at them, yeah, they got keeled over. But by the end of the Clone Wars, when Ahsoka's sitting there in a room with 12 people with blasters pointed at her, she just deflects everything.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because she literally been trained the entire time to implement these forms that for a millennia, not a millennia, but like a century, had been kind of like, what do we need that for? We don't do war. So it's kind of interesting
Yeah.
to see how everything kind of plays
That's a
together.
great observation because lightsaber forms and things that happen over time as blasters developed, different forms came into view. Different things would happen with wars and stuff that would develop lightsaber combat through the ages of like certain times and practices and things of that nature. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And the Clone Wars really shine a light on that because at that point we'd had 1,000 years of peace with the Jedi. Very few did some of these forms. A lot of Form 3 and some other ones, just defensive. Nothing that the Jedi were peacekeepers. They weren't they weren't there to fight wars and deal with that kind of stuff. You're absolutely right on that. Ram Bam, any thoughts? Final thoughts here to start wrapping things up on this lore video about lightsaber origins and the different forms.
Well, I mean, a very good question is why aren't there 69 forms?
Is that
They
really what
ran
you
out
want
of
to
paper.
ask? All right, try again, Ram. I think you can do better. Come on, buddy. Come on, buddy. Come on, come on, Ram. I have faith.
Okay,
in you.
you're right. You're right. I
Come on,
can do better.
Do
okay?
better, buddy.
Hold on.
Come
All
on.
right, let me dig deep.
And that doesn't mean do another smart ass answer. Let's get a real legit question here. Come on, idiot.
Yeah, I was gonna ask for 420.
I know. That's why I was like, okay, see, I was ahead of you, dumbass.
Oh, now, wasn't there? I'm trying to actually think. I mean, bringing up the topic of forms and whatnot. There was somebody. Grandmaster Yoda was the master of all the forms, but there was somebody I remember that beat him in a duel, and he was the only person in the Jedi Order not, and it wasn't Mace.
It was Plo Koon, I believe.
Was it Plo or Kit Fisto? One of those.
One
two.
of those.
It was Plo.
It was Plo Koon. That's why
it was Plo Koon.
Yeah, that's why Sidious was a little bit worried about Plo Koon.
Yeah, that's why he had him executed while they were flying.
Yeah.
It's because Plo Koon, part of it being Keldor and part of it being just who he was as a person, he had mastered force abilities that were considered unknown to the Jedi Order at the time because they were
he used not Force Lightning, he called it
Force Judgment.
Force Judgment, yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah. So he had these really like unique force abilities that gave him just the razor's edge difference between fighting most things, and that's why he was as successful as he was because of just how he was as a Jedi. So yeah, that was one of the few people that actually beat Grandmaster Yoda.
Yeah, and Sidious was worried about 3 Jedi in particular. Mace, Yoda, and Plo Koon were the 3 that he was like, I gotta do something about these guys because they're unique styles and abilities. As powerful as Sidious was, he wasn't stupid. And they were basically 50-50 in a fight. Some he had advantage on in different areas, but they had advantages on him as well. The only reason he lost to Yoda is because Yoda just ran out of time. The way that fight went and just the circumstances and stuff. But I mean, Yoda was definitely on the same level as Sidious. If that fight had continued on, it would have been interesting to see what had happened. If in the books, I think like the clones were coming and stuff, Yoda knew he had to get the. He only had
only reason he lost to Mace was because of a certain Anakin Skywalker.
Well, Anakin Skywalker is
and then it's a little pain in the ass.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll just call it what it is: plot armor.
Yeah, it's plot armor. I've read some theories and whatnot that Sidious had Mace and he was just drawing out the battle so that it. No,
Sidious manipulated that on purpose.
Sidious manipulated Anakin, but there was
right, but
no,
but what
Mace
Sidious
had him.
did was so smart is he knew the form that Mace was using is very aggressive. So when he's like, I'm going to end this, he's in Form 7. Mace ain't fucking around. Mace is going to end this because he's in Form 7. All that aggressive feelings and stuff. And Sidious knew that and used that because he knew Anakin was desperate. Seeing him about to kill Sidious, right? And Sidious playing the part.
Yeah.
That's Sidious. That's Sidious's
Sidious was
true
literally
mastery.
banking on Anakin stepping in
Mm-hmm.
because he knew that if he took the weak approach, that he knew that because he spent all of episode 3 doing that,
Yes.
which was seeding into Anakin's mind that the only way he could save Padme was if Sidious survived. So that's why Anakin stepped in. It had very little to do at the moment with, oh my God, we can't do this. It's just like, no, it's like he wanted to save Padme, and if Sidious died, that knowledge went with him.
Yep.
So he banked on that in the duel. So Mace probably had him on the ropes, but Sidious basically already had paved the map for Anakin's betrayal. And all he had to do was hope that it was he even knew it. He knew Anakin would step in.
Yeah.
And Mace was thinking that Anakin hadn't. That basically the knowledge that Sidious knew that Anakin would step in, and Mace was like, "There's no way he betrays Jedi Order," which was why Mace got defeated there.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
I'm just gonna go on a limb and maybe if Mace had acted more like a father figure, might not have happened.
But Mace never
hey.
trusted Anakin. We'll get into the whole story when we cover Anakin and Mace and everything that goes on with them. I mean, we're gonna get into specifics, but we've kind of gone away with the lore series where it's like, okay, I covered Darth Revan because I just wanted to cover Darth Revan. I think he's the coolest character ever in Star Wars. But we've covered the origins of the Force. We've covered lightsaber forms and origins of lightsabers. So, we'll eventually do a lore series video on just lightsabers itself, how they work, the technology. We're also going to do a video on just the history of the Jedi and the Sith. And we'll break that down to their history, but we're going to get into specific characters and their story arcs and stuff, and we'll cover all that stuff. We're going to wrap it up with the man, the myth, the legend, Rock the Cashmere, with your final thoughts and things, my friend. Any final thoughts, questions, things of that nature that you wanna ask, my friend? It's cool. You're in a safe space. We're in a feelings garden. You can ask anything you want, buddy.
This man, he started talking to me. All right, never mind. I won't tell you that story. No, I'm looking forward to some more episodes actually, and learning a little bit more. It's been fun learning.
Yeah. Now, this video we're recording now, whatever we're recording it date, but this will come out next week, and when it comes out, we won't have anything until 2023. However, if you guys wanted to see us go to a weekly series, you got to get to $1,000 on Patreon. So if you want to make that happen, then by all means do. And share this with your friends. Share this with people that are just Star Wars fans. Yeah, we do Old Republic with the boys, and we play Star Wars Galaxy Heroes and some other things. But yeah, we love Star Wars. We love the lore. We love everything about it. And when you watch this video, leave comments. All that stuff is appreciated. Just don't be an ass clown. I don't put up with that crap. If you want to just say stupid stuff, I'll just delete you. I don't care. But if you have, good constructive feedback or thoughts or anything, or you enjoyed it, just leave a comment. It's what it's all about. And I think with that, we can say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays and New Year, because we won't have another one till the end of the year, or until next year, guys. We won't do another one of these until next year, guys. Man, oh man, get a break from the idiots. I don't even know what to do with myself. Goodness gracious! And if you hear,
do it myself.
No, you'll do a lot of things. If you heard also, just real quick, if you heard me puffing over here, is because I'm giving up chewing tobacco. I've been 2 weeks without chewing tobacco. I'm vaping like a motherfucker because the nicotine withdrawal is horrible, but the vaping is helping me tremendously. So I have to, or I'd lose my mind. So that's what you hear in the background if you heard any vape. So with that, I think we're good. Anything else? Final thoughts? No, I think we're good. With that, thanks for joining us on another episode of Star Wars Lore with Idiots. We'll have this video out as soon as we can. Appreciate every one of you, and we will see you in 2023. Peace out.